and welcome to another episode of Cut the Money Gap. Today's theme continues with FOMO. However, we're going to be focusing on the real estate side, as real estate tends to be another very hot topic on people's minds. And what's happening in the market could also be very drastically polarizing for people right now, because most people think the prices should be going down, and clearly it's not. Omar has all the information we need. So, how are you guys doing today?
Amazing, doing great. I'm excited to tell everybody about this topic specifically. Brian, how are you?
You know what? I'm super excited about this one because, as most people know, I'm a real estate investor and have been for 16 to 17 years. And I barely had a clue of what was going on in 2020 in the real estate market. So, I want to hear more about this to get my plans in order for 2021. So super excited to hear more about this.
That's great. That's great. I am going to try to, provide as much information. Just as a beginning, this is a topic that could go on for a very long time. We can talk about this for a long time. So please feel free to reach out if you do need more information. But, as Asil started with the real estate market this year, everybody seems to compare it to 2017. Everybody's talking about how crazy it is and how, if you talk to any other real estate agent, they're all like really busy with multiple offers, and it's starting off to be a very hot year this year in 2021. So perfect time for us to talk about the phenomena that's taking place a lot. And I thought I'd start this off with an example. I'd start this off with a little story from the past. Actually, that story was in 2017 when we met with this very affluent, he's a millionaire, and he a relationship that we were very excited about because the investor had a very strong portfolio in real estate. And he came to us and he said that, I want to start working with you. And as we went through the market, we were starting to see market numbers grow beyond a reasonable, or trends that were unsustainable. And, everything at the back of our research was telling us to slow down. Right. So as we went out to put offers on properties that he liked, and these were the most prime areas in Toronto, the most expensive, lavish areas in Toronto. And as we went to these properties and had to compete with another, 5, 10, 12 offers, we were always on the conservative side, telling the investor to take it easy. Let's not go beyond this number. And I remember, the first day that I met him and the personality that he had. And then I remember being in these events where, it was a very emotionally charged decision that was about to happen. And I could see FOMO, dripping down his eyes, right? And I remember having to always be the brake to say, yes, there's potential, but there's risk. Let's make sure that we're taking the right decision. So after a few attempts, after a few properties, the investor felt very upset with the fact that he felt like we were holding him back. And he asked to have the representation be canceled. So it was a very disappointing event for myself, but I had to do what the client wanted, and we did. Within less than a week, he had bought another property with another person, and he had purchased the property for a very expensive price. And I feel very sorry for him, but unfortunately, it was as we had predicted. The market was in a very unstable place. And because of the, an intervention of the government, the market completely plummeted in the area that he was focusing on. And it's a great reminder for me whenever I speak about FOMO to remember clients who've been in a very sensitive place like that. And I spoke to him this year. I was asking him if he was interested in going back out to look at some properties. And he told me that he's still recovering from the bad investment that was made. So just a great place to start with FOMO. But what is FOMO? FOMO is, we all experience FOMO. It doesn't matter how far ahead you are in your career. Doesn't matter how much wealth you've built. we all experience the same emotion of FOMO. And as we had spoken about this before, I mean, FOMO it becomes more and more present when you have excessive chaos. And the way to control FOMO is to add order. In order to You add order to either yourself, or you add order to the outside by making sure that you run your numbers and you create a solid plan. So as I had spoken about in the live, I shared, and I'll touch on that very quickly, I shared how do we deal with FOMO in Samad Homes with our clients. And first of all, creating a very solid objective goal and understanding what that goal is, creating a boundary and saying, this is what I'm looking for. And then the second step was clarifying the terms and the objectives, and needing to be very flexible and saying, okay, how can I fit what I want into these boundaries? And in a market that's moving forward, you need to be even more flexible, because you need to be setting yourself in a position where you're going to win. Sometimes it may mean also, while you're planning, is to spread the plan, and instead of trying to do everything that you want in 1 year, trying to spread it over a few years as well. And then getting to speak to a professional. So that's step number 3, speaking to a professional, verifying your plan, and trying to get as much information and insight about the marketplace as possible. After you've collected all this information, you go into step number 4, which is going back to the drawing board and seeing, with this information, how does that affect my plan, and solidifying your plan. And then the last step is you basically go into the market with the certainty, with the order that you need to be able to face whatever chaos comes your way, because you know exactly what it is that you're looking for and how much you're willing to go for it. And that, my friends, is removing the thought process from taking a decision out of the moment and making sure that you do this order prior to. So that's how we deal with FOMO. That's how we deal with FOMO on a regular basis with our clients. And real estate is one of those topics that really brings out an emotional, a plethora of emotions, because you're either dealing with one of the largest investments you're going to be doing, you're dealing with the environment that you surround yourself, the place that you're going to raise your kids, the place where you're going to celebrate all your successes, the place you're going to deal with all your failures. And it's just such a big deal, right? So people take it upon themselves very, very, very emotionally. And if you don't have a plan in place, it could be very detrimental for you. I want to hear from you, Brian, and Asil. How do you deal with FOMO yourselves, and how do you kind of guide your clients before they make a major decision, major purchase?
I actually have a question for you, because I think it's very interesting to see the balance between having a plan and sticking to it, and knowing when that plan itself needs to be changed because of changing market conditions that are inevitable. So I'm wondering, how do you assess when to stick to the plan and when to change the plan itself?
That's a great question. So generally speaking, if the plan, generally speaking, you have to understand where you are in the growth of, or where you are, what kind of market are you in? Are you in a growing market? Are you in a saturated market? Are you in a mature market? And after you know exactly where you are, you know what the trend line is going to be. So you can extrapolate what tomorrow looks like. And if you're in a trend line that is, growing, you need to make sure that your plan today is taking that into consideration. So winning looks different in that kind of a place. So you would then make sure that you're either more flexible with going a little bit further away from the city, so that you have a bigger, your money can afford you more, or trying to be open to buying something that is maybe, instead of buying a detached property, being open to a semi-detached. So setting yourself up to win. So setting yourself up with a plan that's going to make you win.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. So like the bottom line of what you're saying is, to combat emotions, you need a plan that's logical based and a team of experts to help you stick to that plan.
Exactly. But there's another component to it, Asil, and I love that you asked that question now, is because chaos is not always bad for you. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it's thanks to chaos that you end up making good decisions, right? If you're extremely, in a square all the time, then you end up living your life on the sideline. Sometimes some people could, as Brian has told us before, investments is like, or opportunities come like a bus, right? There's multiple buses coming along the way. And if you miss one, you can take the other one. But if your psychology, if you're not driven by chaos enough to eventually take the step forward on one of the buses, you're going to spend your whole life in the bus stop waiting for the bus that'll never come. So it's a balance between chaos and order that you try to play with. But when the outside is very chaotic, then you step closer to order, right? And that's one of the gauges that you want to have when you're looking. Brian, what are your thoughts?
I love this conversation, and I'm reminded, in the way I sort of talk about it with my clients, is a famous quote from Warren Buffett: "But be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy." Right? And that's one of those. How do you know when to adjust the plan? So, I remember in 2017, and I remember the what I consider to be like the chaos was far too high, and the way people were reacting and what was going on, logic had been thrown out the window basically, and the decisions that people were making had become irrational. Well, that's where an investor looks at it and goes, "Oh, now's the time to be fearful because of how greedy others are being." And then in other situations, like in the middle of a global pandemic, when everyone is being fearful, those that acted, right? And I don't like the term greedy, but that's his language. It's more like take advantage of your opportunities. Those that were buying properties in that downswing, or crypto, like we talked about in the last episode, last March, when it was in the downswing, they benefited afterwards, right? When everybody else was being fearful. So that balance, like you said, of chaos versus the plan, but action still needs to be taken. The other thing that just hit me when you were speaking was, and this speaks to you and your level of integrity, right? It would have been so easy for you to take advantage of that situation of having an investor that was hot to trot and didn't want to miss out and overpaying, which happened a lot in 2017, right? There was lots of people out there that weren't necessarily acting in the best interests of their client, got them into a market that they either didn't understand, they weren't able to predict, like what you were doing, or they knew what was going to happen, but they were just interested in the commission. So, it just speaks to your level of integrity and wanting to do the best to your clients, and why it is so important for people to work with a professional who has integrity like yourself, trying to sort through this stuff that is going on. And the fact that you were willing to walk away from a sale because you didn't think it was in the best interest of your client, that's exactly why I'm on a podcast with you and not one of the other 55,000 agents in the GTA.
Thank you,
I
bro.
totally agree. I was actually reflecting on that myself, and I admire the qualities and the values that Samad Home Team projects and display in their client experiences, and this is absolutely one of the top ones that I hold very dear to my own heart.
Thank you. And as you were saying, Brian, when we're working with a home buyer, or when we're working with an investor, we treat the two extremely differently, because an investor, when you look at that plan, the investor is a lot more flexible with where they can be and what they can buy, and the formula for them is, if it makes financial sense, I'm ready to go for it, right? But for a home buyer, it becomes a lot more difficult, and they become constrained by location, needing to be close to a certain school, or being close to family, and all these kind of things. So it's a lot more constrained you're working with, and it even becomes more constraining when you're dealing as a first-time buyer. See, as a first-time buyer in a market like today, for example, if you are a first-time buyer and trying to buy a townhouse or a detached property in the Halton region today, you would be shocked by the amount of demand and the lack of supply that's happening there. We've been in offers in the last couple of weeks where we've seen up to 50, 60 offers on the same property. It's insane. Yes, Brian, I can see your face. It's absolutely insane. And that's because of the dynamics of the supply and the demand in that area over there, with supply being extremely low. But when you're a first-time buyer, you're going up against people who are a lot more resourceful than you, people who have equity built in their properties, right? You as a first-time buyer need to be even more careful. and then you deal with the decision, the decision of, fear of missing out. You have three options in that case with a market like this. Either you have to look at that boundary and you have to become extremely flexible, find a plan that's going to set yourself to win, and we can show you how to do that. And then go in with everything you got and put an offer on a property, certainly, like with certainty, and secure a transitional property before you get to your final destination, right? That's what a first-time buyer can do in a market like this. Or you can decide that, this market is, I have my reservations against the market, and I think the market is going to collapse, or it's going to come down, and I want to wait it out. And you may choose to wait it out and enter in at another time. If you're lucky enough, you're not entering in at a time where it's the same as you are today, right? That's what tends to happen a lot when you're on the sidelines, not willing to be flexible or take action. Is you may wait out and then end up buying something that you could have bought at the same place as you are today. So, you definitely need to understand the market, understand the numbers, and make sure that you're putting together a very solid plan before you take on a purchase as a first-time buyer in a market, especially like today's market. And I would love to share so much more with you. I mean, I had wanted, when I wrote down my plan, I had wanted to talk to you about so much more, but I think with the lack of time that we have, there's going to be a lot more to share later. And if you have any questions about the real estate market and the fear of missing out in it, you're more than welcome to reach out to any one of us, or any of the three of us. Anybody, you, Brian or Asil, do you guys have any questions about the real estate market before we conclude?
No, but I really want to encourage people who have questions to reach out, because ultimately there's a customized plan that works for that person's unique circumstances. It's not one size fit all. It's not a black and white situation. So anybody who has questions on their mind, or even if you're not ready to buy, just to know where you're at in relation to the goals that you have in mind, it's important to consult with professionals, and that's what Omar's here for. So these are my closing remarks.
For me, I so echo what you're saying about creating a plan. It's such a big part of what I take my clients through in my group and one-on-one coaching, is coming up with that investment plan based on their goals and where they want to be in 1, 5, and 10 years from now, as opposed to the fear of missing out or what's in the headlines or that sort of thing. So I'm just so on par with you, whether it's, whatever reason you're buying a piece of real estate, getting into investing, it's that logical, flexible plan geared to your goals and how incredibly important it is, and working with someone to help you build that plan so that you do ultimately reach your goals.
I mean, you're absolutely right, Brian. And I think at the end of the day, you're either making your plan in advance or you're making your plan at the moment where you have to deal with the emotions of doing it. So might as well do it in advance and might as well learn how to do it. Thank you, everybody.
One last thing I like to say to people, that if you don't have a plan for creating financial freedom, then you're probably part of someone else's plan of how they're going to create financial freedom.
I can't agree anymore. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.
Bye.